I'm Elle Embers, and this is Cosmic Curiosities. Hello, curious souls, and welcome back to Cosmic Curiosities. My name is Elle, and if you would like to build upon your relationship with your soul and you, and are interested in how past life regression, cosmic channeling, or energetic coaching can assist you in your journey, you can send me a message on Instagram or visit my website, elleembers.com. Today's conversation, we are diving into the design of wellness and what it means to live in alignment with your ideal health. Joining me is Holistic Nutritionist, Human Design Practitioner, and fellow podcast host of Hopeful and Wholesome, Hope Pedraza. So, let's dive in. Thanks so much for joining me, Hope. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me, Elle. I'm doing good.
Yay! So I wanted to get started today just with a little icebreaker because I think it's a little fun. So would you mind sharing with us what your favorite color, movie, and ice cream flavor is?
Oh, those are such fun questions. Okay, color is purple. Movie, that's such a hard one to answer for me because my mood changes on movies like every other day. I will say, this is like, I don't know. I feel like this is like the weird nerdy part of me. My husband and I love Harry Potter.
Oh.
And so I feel like Harry Potter is something like any of the Harry Potter movies we could watch. I mean, we've probably seen them a million times. So that's something I could watch anytime. And then ice cream, you said ice cream. So we just went on a trip to Europe and, like you can't beat the gelato. And I'm actually lactose intolerant, but I can go to Italy and eat the gelato just fine because it's not like poison like it is in the United States. And so pistachio is like my go-to when we go to Italy and I can actually eat the gelato. The pistachio is like, it's so good. So I'm going to say pistachio.
Ooh, yay. Oh my gosh. Love it. Love it. I was much the same. You know, we went over to Italy and I could eat the gelato and everying was fine as well. So I totally
awesome.
Get it.
Yes. It's the best.
And Harry Potter, I'm a bit of a nerd myself, so.
Yeah. So you get it.
Oh, thanks so much for sharing.
Yes.
Before we dive into too much detail about everything, would you like to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Yes. So I am a certified holistic nutritionist. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And then I'm a certified Pilates instructor. So I have a brick and mortar Pilates-based fitness franchise that I started here in the United States in Texas. So my world is kind of melding together like the movement and the wellness and the nutrition, like all of those wellness puzzle pieces together.
How exciting. I love that because we often think about one aspect and forget about the rest.
Exactly.
So having that encouragement to involve all parts in more of a holistic output is so much more beneficial.
Yeah, for sure. And that was kind of the idea when I started my studio. I started my studio 10 years ago. And that was kind of the idea and it's, of course, it's evolved and it's changed and, you know, as I've evolved and changed. But when I first started, that was kind of my goal where I first wanted to give everybody a place to get like anything they wanted in one place. So we have a bunch of different modalities at my studio, but then I also wanted it to be kind of like you were saying, like this one-stop wellness place too, where, you know, we've got the nutrition and then like now I've since then I've gotten trained in Reiki and all these. So we have all these other pieces that we can put together with the wellness equation and I can kind of put all that together. So yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. And we're here to talk today about human design and a little bit about how we can approach this from a holistic aspect. So we know a little bit about the different types, but I'd really like to explore more on how to integrate different tools for these particular types in our real life and how this can benefit us in a holistic aspect. So I'm going to pass the reins over to Hope. and she's going to lead us in some incredible information. So Hope, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I love it. So I include human design. I started including human design sometime last year in my training or in my programs because it was kind of another piece of the wellness equation for me. Like it's this like spiritual energetic piece that has to part to do in the wellness puzzle and understanding yourself on an energetic level. And I felt like this was kind of a missing piece, or was a missing piece in the wellness equation, and understanding how you're wired, how you're designed, right? And
yeah,
from my perspective, it was when you look at wellness through the lens of human design, we spend a lot of our lives, we spend a lot of energy, right? Living by the shoulds and kind of living by how we think we should live, right? Living by the shoulds and really being something that we're not designed to be. And when we do this over a long period of time, and listeners, y'all know what I'm talking about, you start to meet resistance, right? You start to feel like you're running into walls and you're feeling frustrated, and all those not self themes that we're going to talk about, all those things start coming up. We meet resistance. And when we do that over a long period of time, it shows up physically in the body, and it shows up as burnout, and it shows up as our immune system starting to show itself, and it shows up as gut issues, and it starts to manifest itself physically in the body. And so when we're able to understand who we are at an energetic level and live how we are designed to be, we can live with more ease and flow and not meet that resistance. And our physical bodies can move in tandem with our energetic bodies, right? That we can all move together. And so I just wanted to preface it by saying that, and to understand kind of the connection with wellness and human design and how we can put those pieces together. But going back to what you were saying, so talking about the different types and like really how to utilize this. And so I like to look at it. Now I'll just go through the different types. Mm-hmm. And I like to look at it with a few different ways, like how we use energy, sleep, eating, how we make decisions. Like all of those things are kind of the big pieces that I like to teach my clients. So let's start with manifestors. So manifestors are a pretty small percentage of the population, and manifestors are the visionaries, right? They're the ones that have the vision. So whereas the manifestors have the vision, the generators are the doers that bring these things to life. Because manifestors are these really independent visionaries, their energy is really ever changing. Like they don't have this consistent energy that sustains them. And I find that manifestors can be really susceptible to conditioning, especially if they spend a lot of time around generators and manifesting generators who are just like Energizer bunnies, just go, 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 go. Manifestors kind of have to get them to take a step back. And there's some conditioning that we kind of have to unravel and undo. Because if my manifestors are going till exhaustion, at the end of the day, they're like, oh, like they're going too far. Like exhaustion is telling them that they've gone too far.
Yeah.
Manifestors' energy changes, right? They kind of work in phases. And because their energy is always changing, their caloric needs also are going to change. Calorie meaning energy. Energies are calories. Calories are energy. So understanding how your energy phases work as a manifestor is going to be really helpful. So when they're in like an action phase, they're going to need more calorie dense foods, more higher calorie foods. They have more energy to burn. They have more energy they need to fuel themselves with. When they're in kind of their resting phase, we kind of flip that around, more cooling, light, vibrant foods, maybe even less calories, less portions. Maybe they're not eating as much. They're eating lighter foods, not as dense foods. They're going to change. Same with how they move. Maybe when they're in these action phases, they have more energy to do more higher intensity exercise. When we're in this resting phase, we need to kind of slow it down. Let's do more lower intensity exercise, like maybe yoga or walking or hiking or something that's not as intense. But understanding that kind of those energetic waves and those phases that they work through is really supportive for their energy levels. Mm-hmm. And then sleep is important for manifestors. And this is a tough one. When I did my training for human design, I learned this, and we talked about it a little bit, and it's a hard one for people, but sometimes it's helpful for manifestors to sleep alone. Manifestors can take on energy from other people, and especially if you're in a relationship, if your partner is a generator or a manifesting generator, like they're just like these like constantly putting out the energy. Like it can be really overwhelming for manifestors and for reflectors, which we'll get to. But sleeping alone can be supportive. So just keeping that in mind, if you're feeling drained, like energetically just totally drained, sleeping alone can be really supportive for your energy. manifestors really need time to discharge from the day, like at night, taking time to disconnect from other people's energy, from the energy you've picked up throughout the day, whether that's reading or meditating or journaling or music or, whatever it is that helps you kind of disconnect from the day. That's really supportive for their energy. If they're feeling stuck, if they're feeling that not self things coming up for them, just kind of anger is kind of what comes up for them, doing something that feels fun, that feels like play, is going to be really supportive. And I like to say that to the women that I work with. A lot of them, I work with a lot of professionals, driven women who they're the working professionals or they have businesses or whatever. A lot of times that's not on the to-do list, is doing something that's fun, something that feels like play. It's just not, it's not part of the routine a lot of times.
Yeah.
And that's something that we really have to work on so that we don't start to feel like, hey, we talked about like that feelings of burnout or resistance. Like we want things to feel like play. And that's a good way to kind of shift their state for manifestors. So now we can talk about generators. Generators, whereas manifestors have the vision, they're the visionaries. Generators, yes, they're the doers. They have a lot of energy, and they have the consistent energy that manifestors do not. And so because of this, it's going to be, I don't want to say rules is not the word, but the aligned ways of living are going to be better for them. I don't want to say rules because that sounds too restrictive, but it's going to be different. So for generators, they are designed to do what lights them up, what brings them pleasure, and to do what makes them feel joy and satisfaction. And that's that theme that's going to come up for them. That's when they know they're in alignment. And they have a consistent energy throughout the day. And so because of this, they're going to constantly want to be going after what is bringing them joy, what's bringing them pleasure, what's bringing them fun. And this could shift and change. And when we get to manifesting generators, we'll kind of talk a little bit more about this, because there's a little bit more conditioning, I feel like, at least in my experience, having to undo with them. But knowing that what lights them up and what brings them pleasure can shift and change, and that's okay. Like being okay with that.
Yeah.
They are designed to be turned on by every aspect of their life, and they have the energy to do it. Because they have so much energy, have this consistent energy, generators are really designed to go until exhaustion. So my generators, I tell them, if I have generators that I work with that they're having trouble falling asleep at night, having trouble kind of like winding down, it's did you get enough physical energy out today? Like, did you get a workout in or whatever? And like, did you get all the mental energy out? Like sometimes it's just doing a brain dump at the end of the day, like all the mental chatter that's going on, just, get it out. And so that you're able to it's like a puppy. I always equate it to a puppy. Like you let the puppy run around outside so it doesn't tear up your house, and because it's got all the energy built up in it.
Yeah.
So it's like a puppy. Like, let's get the energy out so that you can sleep knowing that, okay, I've got all the energy out and I can rest, and then I'll be ready again tomorrow to pick it up and, keep going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and that's really, for me, for generators too, it kind of, where I was talking about manifestors, how they can kind of change their state if they're feeling kind of stuck. Or for generators, it's moving, like move your body, go for a walk, go get in a quick workout, go do some jumping jacks, go do something to get your body moving. And that's instantly going to change your state. It's going to get that sacral energy flowing again to help you it's kind of like restarting the gears in the body. And I mentioned this, but for sleep is going to be really important for generators to recharge that sacral battery. But again, knowing that you want to get all the energy out during the day before you go to sleep. Okay, so then let's talk about manifesting generators. What is your type, by the way?
I'm a manifesting generator.
Okay, that's what I thought. I feel like we talked about that before. I am too, and I figured so. We talked about that. Okay, so for us manifesting generators, that's Manny Gens. There's so much to talk about for this, because I've had to unravel so many things in myself and unconditional. I mean, I'm sure you could say the same thing. Like there's so much that goes on. With the Manny Gens. So manifesting generators, it's kind of a combination of the last two I talked about, but really they're more generators than they are manifestors, but there's kind of a combination of those. We're the multitaskers, right? We're like these creative whirlwinds that are here to do everything. And that was the first piece for me that I had to untangle, because I think for so long, there's so many things I like to do. Like I've just always been multi-passionate, and I always felt like that was something I had to like apologize for or like change. Like, no, just pick the thing, just pick something and stick with it and do that thing. And then, I would get so mad at myself about it. Like, just pick something. I just couldn't make myself do it. And then when I learned my human design, I'm like, my gosh, like this makes so much sense. It's literally how I'm designed. Mm-hmm. And so that was the first thing. We are here to multitask. We are here to be multi-passionate, multifaceted, The other thing is similar to generators where they're here to do what lights them up and what brings them pleasure. Same with the mani gen, right? We are here to do what lights us up. When it doesn't light you up anymore, do something else. And that was a big one for me. And I think that's why I dealt with adrenal burn, like full on adrenal burnout. I had to heal myself from that a few years back. And I think a lot of it has to do with that, where I was pushing myself to just like finish the thing and keep doing the thing, even when it wasn't lighting me up anymore and it wasn't exciting me anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had similar experiences where I'm like, this is not fun at all. Like, I'm not enjoying this at all, but I'm just going to keep doing it because I said I was going to do it. So I'm going to do it. And so I think that the deconditioning around that is, society will tell you that you're flaky or that you're indecisive or that you can't stick with things or whatever. You can't follow through. Who cares? Like, that's not, as a mani gen, like that's when you start to meet the resistance and your body is going to tell you. And that's, for me, my adrenals were like totally shot. And so understanding that it's okay if it doesn't light you up anymore, if it's not fun anymore, do something else. Maybe it's something you delegate or you can change your mind. Like, it's okay to change your mind.
Totally.
And I think this is, and I think this is true. This is so true with, I've actually have a lot of mani gens that I've worked with in my nutrition business. It's kind of a tricky thing because mani gens, we don't like being put in a box. We don't like being restricted. But when I'm working with women, like I'm helping women deal with chronic issues, right? Like symptoms they've been dealing with for a long time. Sometimes they have multiple autoimmune things. And there is kind of a part of the protocol where it's like, we've got to stick to this anti-inflammatory diet. Like, we've got to stop the inflammation. And so it's tricky because we have to stick with the diet, but there also has to be this place of flexibility within that restriction. And so playing with that can be tricky, but it's doable. I think that's something else that we have to decondition ourselves from as mani gens is we do things in phases, and food and exercise can be the same way. So maybe you have a phase where you do the Mediterranean diet for a while, and then you get tired of that. And then you do the paleo diet for a while and you get tired of that. And then you try the keto diet, like you try all the diets. And it's not saying you have to jump from diet to diet, but it's like, this is what I like this right now. And I like cooking these particular things right now. Maybe you go through a casserole phase where you just eat casseroles. Like maybe you just eat sushi for, you go through phases and it's okay. The same thing with exercise.
Yeah, that's totally me with cereal right now.
I love that. And my husband is saying, my husband is mani gen too. It's the same thing. And we'll buy like the same thing at the grocery store for a solid month. And all of a sudden he's like, I'm over it. Now we're going to, do something else. So I totally get that. That's so funny. And the same thing with exercise. And I know this has been me with exercise. Maybe you have a running phase and then you have a CrossFit phase, then you have a weightlifting phase, and you have a Pilates phase, right? Just doing things in phases. And it's okay. Like doing what lights you up and what brings you pleasure and joy and fun in the moment. And then when it's not, do something else.
Yeah.
The other thing with that, with the restriction, like too much structure for a mani gen, it's not going to work. And so if you've ever felt, and I've had to work with clients through this, if they feel like a failure, like, I can't ever stick to anything and I can't ever follow through. And actually a client today, I had a call with one today, and she was telling me that she was like, man, I try to do something and I'm really motivated for a while and I just lose my motivation anymore. And she was like really getting down on herself. And I'm like, girl, this is your design. Like, you're not supposed to stick with something forever. Like, that's just not how you're designed. It's okay. So giving yourself that like grace and flexibility to change your mind and be okay not, living by rules, like rules and structure is just not a great thing for many gens. So being okay with like living outside of the rules, living outside of the box is okay.
Yeah.
For sleep, for a manifesting generator, similar to a generator and like that puppy energy I was talking about, like getting all the energy out before you go to bed. I even have some mani gens where, I know typically it's not like a good rule to say, bring your work to bed with you, but sometimes that's a supportive thing because it allows them to get all of the energy out and all the things that are going on in their head out before they hit the pillow. And so that can be actually what helps them fall asleep. It's like, okay, I got all the work done, finished everything up, and I feel good, and now I can go to sleep.
Yeah.
So again, we're living by different rules as manifesting generators, I think.
Totally. Yeah.
Have you found that that's supportive for you?
It is. And I feel like a lot of the time I have issues not completing something. So like if something's not finished, I can't go to bed. Like I need to finish the thing. And it doesn't matter if it takes me until 3 a.m. Like,
totally. I do the same thing. Well, and too, because many gens are driven by that sacral energy. Like once your motor gets going, it's like you can't stop it. Like you got to let it run its course, because I do the same thing.
Yeah.
And being okay with that too. Like it's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's move on to projectors. So projectors are about 22% of the population, and they're very unique. Projectors are very unique. My son is a projector, actually. And when I found that out, I'm like, you have one too?
Yeah, my son and my husband.
Do you really? And your husband too? That's awesome. When I found out my son wasn't, I'm like, oh my gosh, this explains so much. They're just such unique humans. Like they just really are. So projectors are very perceptive problem solvers, and they can really see things in a way that other people can't see things. They're like watching, they're like the managers, right? Like they're good at helping people find a better way of doing things. And like, let's work this problem out this way. And they help you be able to solve problems more efficient way. They're able to see like the big picture and kind of distill it down to solve problems the most efficient way possible. And this is kind of getting into the weeds here, but if you're like, and if you've watched or listened to your other episode, they kind of have a general sense of human design. So you have the open centers and the defined centers, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at the centers on the body graph, a projector has a lot more open centers, meaning that their energy centers aren't filled in, which leaves a lot more room for fluidity and flexibility. And open and defined, like there's not a good or bad. It just is.
Yeah.
And so not saying this is a good or a bad thing, it just is, but it leaves them more susceptible. It leaves them more susceptible to conditioning, but it also allows for more fluidity through these centers. And I think that's what makes them so unique and allows them to see things in such a different way. But they also, because of this, they really have to operate from their wellness, look at that from a different perspective. So their energy is constantly changing, and they don't have that consistent energy that we're talking about with generators and manifesting generators. So projectors really aren't designed to just go. Like projectors, I find, at least in the handful that I've worked with, are really susceptible to burnout. Because projectors they're really designed to just work a few hours at a time. Not saying projectors can't work longer than that, because once a projector is doing what lights them up, kind of like other energy types, then they can keep working. But really and truly, they are designed to just work kind of in spurts, and they do require more sleep than the other energy types. Like even just at night, like they need more sleep. They need more time to rest and recharge their batteries. And so understanding that their energetic needs are going to be totally different than really any other type, honing in on that with how you eat and how you approach. I find that with projectors, whereas many gens are like restriction is not helpful at all. With projectors, I find that actually, and I don't want to say restrict because I'm not a fan of restricted diets, but eating in a certain way can be supportive for a projector. And I mean this like eating paleo or eating plant-based, whatever, like eating a certain way is supportive, and not in a like restrictive way, but in a fact of like, I don't have to think about it. Like it's one less thing I have to put my energy towards, you know?
Yeah, like routine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's why it works so well for them, is it's like my energy can only go in certain directions, and this is one less thing I have to think about.
Yeah.
So I find that can be supportive for projectors. And really with projectors, they can feel weighed down by big portion sizes. So snacking throughout the day and kind of like, these are like the grazers, I find is more supportive for their energy for projectors, and not eating big, heavy meals and being able to kind of just graze throughout the day, little snacks throughout the day. And sleep, similar to manifestors. Sleep for projector, taking time to disconnect and discharge from the day is really supportive.
Yeah.
Taking the time to let go of whatever energy you've taken on from other people, lay down a good, 30, 45, even an hour before going to sleep to be able to like, let me turn it all off, disconnect, discharge. This can be really supportive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. The last type is reflector. Now reflectors, of course, are like our unicorns, right? It's a very small percentage of the population, just about 1%. Reflectors have all their centers open. So they have no defined centers. So they have these really open auras that the way they experience life is just totally different from any other type. Their aura really magnifies everything else and everyone. Reflectors, they're literally reflecting what they see around them. And so their gift in that, again, there's no good or bad with defined or undefined centers, but their gift in that is that they're able to read other people and their environment in a totally different way. Now, that being said, reflectors, I feel like no, there's an intuitive sense to all of this. And like we talked about in the episode that you did for my show, like there's a huge gift in being able to tune into your intuition and use that, intuitiveness.
Absolutely.
With reflectors, it's especially important because they're taking on the energy of people so much throughout the day. There's a big emphasis on like discernment and discerning like what is mine and what is somebody else's, right? And so their environments, their community, their alone time, like all of that is sacred and it's really important. And that's a big thing with reflectors that I've talked to you before. It's creating a safe space. I always encourage them, create a safe space at home that's yours, whether it's the corner of a bedroom or wherever, to have a safe space that's yours that you can go. I feel safe. I can be alone. I can recharge my batteries. The space and the environment's going to be really important. And then because there's so much fluidity with their energy and how their energy is coming in and out and kind of the magnitude of the energy that they have at different points in time, their energy is not only going to change every day, but it's going to change throughout the day. And it's really going to depend on who they're around a lot of the time. So if you're somebody who works, a reflector who works with generators or manifesting generators, or like your partner is one, like that's going to be really exhausting for you. And understanding that that's going to be a drain on your energy. Whereas if you're working by yourself or with other, maybe a projector or another reflector, like it's going to be a little bit different. And knowing that your energy is going to change from day to day, which means that the way you eat, the way you move, all of that is going to change from day to day. So again, that intuitive piece is going to come into play here because you want whatever you're doing for exercise and movement to be supportive of your energy at that time. So if you've had a day where you just feel totally drained, right? Your energy has just been zapped. Well, okay, like let's maybe not go do like the hardcore boot camp workout you're planning to do at the end of the day, right? Like let's do something else. Or if you've had a day where you like, I feel super energized, I've been able to like hold my energy all day. Like, okay, now we're ready to do the higher intensity workout. Same thing with food, like allowing your food to support your changing energetic needs and really give you that consistent energy or that consistent support for your energy and allowing food. So I just feel like there's a bigger intuitive piece here for reflectors and to be able to read how my energy is changing. What does my energy feel like today? How can I support that with the right foods to help keep that energy consistent or not weigh me down and make me feel, more sluggish or kind of drain my energy, and kind of using that intuitive piece. Sleep is going to be similar to what I was saying about projectors is when you've taken on other people's energy all day long, like your aura is so open, you've just taken on everything. And so taking that time to disconnect, discharge from the day, come back into yourself and being able to feel, again, there's that discernment piece, like come back into what's yours and coming back into your energy and your space and kind of feeling that before you go to sleep. Now, of course, again, this, and a lot of what I'm saying, like it's supportive for everybody. A lot of it is, but just kind of honing in a little bit more for each type. Journaling and breath work, I feel like is really supportive for reflectors. Again, beneficial for everybody. And I recommend it for everybody, but especially beneficial for reflectors because they do have to focus so much on coming back into themselves. The breath work and the journaling, I feel like are such good, like grounding exercises for them to really change their state and kind of get out of that like stuck feeling. Really good way to really come back into their energy.
Yeah.
So yeah,
definitely. Thanks for sharing, Hope. So when it comes into like food and naturopathy and things like that and human design, are there particular things that tend to show up in different design types? More design types or more susceptible to certain issues like gut health issues or adrenal issues, things like that. Does that kind of come into play?
Yeah, so I think it comes more into when we're looking at our centers, like our open versus defined centers, which does play into your type. And it's funny, we're having this conversation. I just, last week I was doing a reading for one of my clients. I was doing a recording for her, and adrenal burnout is something that she's dealt with for a long time. And she had an open root, and then she had an open sacral center. And both of those are kind of linked to that feeling of burnout. The root center, for sure. The root center is associated with your adrenal glands. And so I find my clients with open root centers, that's something we really have to talk through. And I have an open root center again, which is no surprise that I dealt with adrenal burnout in my own body. But the adrenals are so sensitive to stress. And when you have an open root center, it's a pressure center, right? And so you can feel the pressure to do and keep going and push. And that's not what you're designed to do when you have an open root center. And so understanding like I don't want to say limitations is not the word, but understanding your boundaries, I guess is a better way to say it. Boundaries are a big thing when you have an open root center, because you do feel like pressure from other people and others to keep going, and the distinguishing between like internal pressure and the fact like, okay, I really want to get this done versus like, oh gosh, I need to get this done because so-and-so is putting rather than looking at like the external pressure.
Yeah.
So the open root center, I'd say, is strongly linked to like adrenal burnout and issues with the adrenals. So things to definitely keep in mind. And then the sacral center was the other one I was talking about. The sacral center as well. So open sacral center can also kind of lend itself that way too, in feelings of like anxiety, that kind of because it's open, both of these specific centers, because they're open, right? You're susceptible to outside conditioning. And so it just takes a little bit more, I guess, and there's an intuitive piece there to kind of determine like what's yours and what's other people's, right? But with the sacral center, now your sacral center is associated with your sexual organs. But I find that because it's kind of that driving center for pleasure and creativity, and it is another motor center that's like a driving force, this one can create those feelings of like, you kind of feel these self-imposed external pressures. And so it can show up as anxiety and stress, and it can show up as adrenal burnout, because the anxiety and the adrenals, like all of those emotions go together. And so the open sacral and the open root are definitely more susceptible to like anxiety, adrenal burnout. And then the throat center is another one, right? The throat center is associated with the thyroid gland, and our throat center is our projected voice, right? It's our voice, and it's how we manifest. And I feel like I want to do more research on this, because I've been thinking about this for a while, because especially in the United States, I don't know how it is in Australia, but in the United States, there's just this astronomical increase of thyroidism, mostly hypothyroidism, and just so many people with hypothyroidism. I mean, I just feel like it's over the past probably 10 years or so, it's just grown. And there's a lot of physical reasons for that, but I'm a firm believer that there's always an energetic and spiritual reason for all the physical things that show up in the body.
Yeah.
And so I do find that my clients with open throat centers, this is something we have to work through here. And it shows up as either thyroid issues or just like metabolism issues in general, because our thyroid is responsible for our metabolism, right? It all goes together. And so I find that my clients that have the open throat center, and here's a great example. So I have a client that's working through healing from a narcissistic relationship. She was dealing with like really struggling with smoking. That was like her vice, was smoking. And she was like, I need to stop. I know I need to stop. And that was kind of one of the things we were working on together. And so I had done some reading and stuff, and I sent her this thing, and I told her, I was like, I feel like you're not able to speak your truth. Like, I feel like there's something that's holding you back from speaking your truth and being you and being heard. So then she shares this whole thing with me about this narcissistic relationship. And it's funny because with the throat center, that's one of the things that can show up with an unbalanced, these vices that come out, and smoking is one of them with an unbalanced throat center.
Yeah.
And because her throat center is open, she's more susceptible to that, to kind of holding back and expressing herself, and fear of being heard and that kind of thing. And that was one of the things she had been like struggling with healing from for the past year. And so we were able to kind of work through that. But I thought it was such a beautiful example of what happens when we allow the conditioning to kind of overshadow us, right? And our true essence and our true being. And I mean, she's made leaps and bounds. It was like this huge breakthrough for her. And she stopped smoking, by the way. Like like the last call we had, she was so excited to tell me that she'd stopped smoking, like totally stopped.
Oh, that's great.
And I really thought it was awesome. Yeah. And I thought, I was like, what's going to be this long process? And, we'll be patient. And she's like, no, I totally stopped. And so being able to work through that, but the open throat center, but I feel like this one shows up a lot, and it does show up physically with metabolism. And that was one of the things. She was having so much trouble digesting food, and her metabolism was like in the tank, and the way, there's so many things. And so it's no accident that it's by design, like it's by design. And so I think understanding the open centers a lot of times, I think, is where a lot of these things show up. Not to say people don't have issues when their centers are defined. But I think the open centers are always a really good place to look at what's showing up physically in the body. We can kind of start making connections from there.
I always think it's really interesting how things show up physically because of energetic or spiritual issues, you know?
Totally. And that was kind of one of the things I learned on my journey as I've kind of evolved and changed things and I've added kind of these spiritual energetic pieces in. That was one of the things I learned within myself is it's like, yeah, there's all these physical things showing up, but if you're not addressing, like I'm all about addressing the root cause. And as a functional practitioner, like that's what we do. We get to the root cause. But the real root cause, in my opinion, is always an energetic, emotional piece. Like that's what the real root cause is. And yeah, there's, stuff with your adrenals and your gut and stuff, but it's really getting down to like on a soul level, like why has this physical thing shown itself from looking at myself at a soul level? Like there's always a connection there. Yeah. So I love putting those pieces together.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess as well, when it comes down to the holistic side of human design and how this does show up physically, I'm going to get the word wrong. Is it authority? Is that? Yeah. Is that how you kind of respond to things? Is that your authority?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes. Your authority. Yes. So tell me your question again about authority.
Oh my gosh, that would have helped, wouldn't it? So your authority and how you respond to different things that show up in your life and how you respond to different, I guess, things within yourself holistically, that's going to change not just via your type, but obviously your centers and everything being open or defined. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So your authority, is basically based on which specific centers are defined versus undefined, right? Like, for example, like a sacral authority, only manifesting generators or generators can have a sacral authority because they have their sacral centers defined. There's only two types that can have their sacral centers defined. Yeah. So there is a huge connection on which centers are defined and your authority. And that's a huge piece too, the authority. And that's a big one that I always help with my clients through understanding how you do best make decisions, because that's a huge piece of living in alignment, is knowing, where your decision-making vibes are coming from, right? Is it coming from your sacral center, from your splenic center, from your, so yeah, it's definitely a huge piece.
And so when it comes to, I know that there was something about when I remember looking at my chart about people being emotional, non-emotional.
Yeah, like emotional authority.
Yeah.
Like emotional authority. Yeah.
Yeah. So does that also play into, I guess, mental health and emotional health as well as the physical side of things? Do people tend to fluctuate through this, or is that kind of something that is defined? Like they have a set way of responding to things. It could be from an emotional standpoint, it could be from a non-emotional standpoint, but that's generally the go-to. And do they need to take, I guess, more calculated steps to respond and react to things?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. With an emotional authority, it sounds like when you say emotional authority, it sounds like, oh, well, I just make emotional decisions. And that's not really what it means. When you have emotional authority, it basically means that you follow your emotional wave and you wait for emotional clarity. And so making emotional decisions can be an easy thing for somebody with an emotional authority if they don't wait for that clarity. Clarity comes with time with an emotional authority. And so allowing yourself to sink into your spiritual awareness and being able to tune in with your emotions, emotional intelligence is going to be a huge asset for people with emotional authority, to be able to discern their emotions and kind of feel the wave of the emotions and allow kind of the wave to pass before they make the decision. And so whereas a sacral authority, it's like a hell yes or a hell no, right? Like it's like an easy, quick, hard and fast yes or no. With an emotional authority, sometimes it takes longer for that clarity to come. And so I think for an emotional authority, it's like there's a level of patience required for that, to kind of ride the wave and wait for that awareness and that spiritual awareness and that emotional clarity to come. But I do find that for emotional authority, so the emotional center, just in general, it's a solar plexus center, right? It's the emotional center. And in general, this is one of the centers that I really tune in with my clients, and, all the centers are important. I can't say one's more important than the other, but I like to really tune into the ones where pieces show up physically. And the emotional center is one of those. The solar plexus, or the emotional center, again, this is by design. Like, there's no accident here. It's associated with basically with your detox organs, kidneys, your blood, like it's associated with your detox organs. And so if you think about it, if we are not in tune with our emotions, if we're holding on to our emotions, we're literally holding on to toxins in the body. Like, we can't get rid of them. And so there's a really important, whether that center is defined or undefined, now, especially with an open center, and I have my emotional center is open. And so it's especially something I have to tune into, and because you can be, labeled as overly emotional and making emotional decisions about things, and you have that center open, because you are susceptible to taking on other people's emotions and feelings and all of that. But it also leaves you susceptible to pushing down your emotions and stuffing in your emotions and becoming detached from your emotions and holding back your emotions. And again, you're not allowing those emotions to work through the body. You're literally holding on to toxins. Like, the organs associated with the center aren't able to function as efficiently as they should. So I kind of went like a roundabout for the question that you had, but yes, I do feel like that the emotional center is a really important one, and having that emotional authority, it's important to understand kind of how that center works and being able to ride the emotional wave before making the decisions. And then even if that center is open, it's also an important one to really understand, because emotion, it's such a tricky thing. Like, emotions, they're energy in motion. They're meant to stay in motion. And it's when they aren't in motion any longer is that it becomes a problem. And this is when things start to show up in the body. And I really think this is the reason for so much toxicity and stagnation in the body. It's just us not allowing ourselves to feel the emotions, like work through the emotions, transmute the emotions, and move past the emotions. Like, there's so much to that. So summing it up, I think the emotional center is such an important one to understand and to really tune into, and know how to work with it within your body, whether it's an open center or a defined center.
Yeah. So would you say for emotional authorities and sacral authorities that one is either better at emotionally regulating than the other?
That's a good question. And I'll probably say no, because it depends on the person. Because with someone who has the ability to self-regulate like that with the emotional authority, then heck yeah, like, they know how to tune into it. But for somebody who doesn't know how to like harness that, they're like an emotional roller coaster, and they're making emotional decisions left and right because they're not waiting for that clarity to arrive before making the decision. So it's really about being able to like harness that and like understand it and know yourself. And I think it all goes back to self-awareness. And this is a huge thing I work with my clients on, like self-awareness. I wish there was like a course in school that taught kids this, because it's like,
right?
It's such an important part of life. And it really and truly, it's something you have to learn yourself. Like, they don't teach it to you. And I say this like with all the love and compassion, but it's amazing to me how many adults get through their life with zero self-awareness. Like, how have you made it this far? Like, you have zero self-awareness. So I think it all goes back to self-awareness, because the person with self-awareness can understand their emotional waves. And that's everything too. I think sometimes people, and I think this goes back to our open versus defined emotional centers. Sometimes people are scared of their emotions. Like, they're scared to feel them. We all just want to feel the good ones. Like, let's be honest, nobody wants to feel the bad emotions, but it's also part of life. And we have to feel the bad emotions to get to the good emotions sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I think that's the other piece too, is sometimes people they're afraid to feel the emotions. And so they're afraid to ride that emotional wave and let it pass before making the decision with clarity versus making a rash emotional decision.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, people tend to look at their human design type and think, this is my restriction. This is the only thing that I am allowed to resonate with.
Totally.
And, if I have more, I guess, a sacral authority, but I'm more emotionally driven, they're going to be like, oh, well, I can't listen to my emotions. I can't process my emotions. I need to lean more into my sacral or vice versa.
Yes.
And it's really like human design's not meant to be a put you in a box type of tool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's exactly it. And honestly, there's a lot of, and I encourage people who are wanting to get more into human design, if you do trainings, like to be really vigilant about finding one that doesn't teach it that way. Because there are a lot of people that do teach it that way. And yeah, it was never designed to put you in a box. And if anything, it was designed to teach you how unique an individual we all really are. And it's a lot of these things I'm saying, like it applies to everybody. Like all of these are great principles to live by, but it's just harnessing it a little bit more for certain types and being able to harness it a little bit differently, because it's not about restricting and I can only do this or I can't do this because I'm this type. Like it's not meant to be that way.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like I remember when my son found out he was a projector and he was like, oh, I can only work a few hours a day. I can't do these chores. Like I've already been to school.
Exactly.
And I'm like, what?
I love that so much. It's so true. And I that's why I wanted to point that a little bit when I was talking about that, because that does make people feel restricted. But there are plenty of projectors who work totally fine when it lights them up. But it depends. It also depends on what you're doing. If it's on your soul's path, then it's going to feel great. I could do this all day. But if it's not, it's going to feel awful and you're going to need to take a nap after 3 hours. It's important to understand the difference between. I love that he said that. That's awesome.
I just think, it was any excuse will do that day, but
of course,
this is the one that nobody wants to work.
So awesome.
But I think too, I don't know if you found this as well, but a lot of projectors, they do tend to, I guess as a form of protection, I find they do tend to disconnect in just conversations that don't interest them because they don't want to waste their energy.
Yeah. Their energy.
So they're like, if this doesn't really involve me, I'm going to completely shut down and I'm not going to hear anything that this conversation is about because this doesn't involve me. I don't need to respond. I'm good. I will just stand here in the corner.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Protect your energy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I always I envy that a little bit because being a mani-gen, I'm just like, go all the time. I'm like, what was said? What do I need to do? How do I need to show up? What's going on?
Yep.
And then my son's just like, we did what now? Like,
yeah. Oh, it's so great.
But as a, I guess, health practitioner as well, and it comes down to, we've spoken a little about emotions and we've spoken a little bit about how to eat and sleep for your design type more appropriately. What about movement? Are there more design types that are wanting to be more active and, ones that are wanting to be less active? Is this down to, I guess, the energy supply and demand, or is this, another defined, undefined centers?
So I think, generally speaking, generators and manifesting generators, because we have so much energy, daily movement is going to be supportive no matter what. It doesn't mean it has to be super hardcore, high intense every day, but daily movement is going to be supportive just to help get the energy out. The other piece is a defined root center. A defined root center, it's going to be more supportive for people with a defined root center to do more higher intensity exercise because, again, it's this pressure center and it's really kind of this consistent source of pressure for them. And so a lot of times that exercise is what kind of releases the pressure for a defined root center. So I find that a lot of times a defined root center can do really well with higher, not saying you have to do it every day, but a high intensity exercise a few times a week for a defined root center can be really supportive. Lower intensity exercise can kind of be more beneficial for an open root center. Again, not saying you can't ever do a high intensity workout. So I don't want to put people in a box, restrict people, but it can be more beneficial for lower intensity exercise for an undefined root center. Again, because we kind of have more of this external pressure we're feeling for other people. And so it's, I just find it supportive. It can be more supportive for lower intensity, but all in all, I think it really goes back to generally, really it's the types, right? The mani-gens and the generators really do good with daily movement. And then for projectors, manifestors, and reflectors, there's more of there's more inconsistencies there with their energy. And so it's going to fluctuate a little bit more.
Yeah. There's going to be days where they're really into it and days where they're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think a big part of, I guess, self-awareness and self-acceptance is coming to terms that sometimes our self-care practices with movement or diet, they're going to fluctuate. And that's okay. We don't have to be stuck in routine.
And that's exactly it. And I feel, and I say this from experience too, but a lot of times I think we feel like we have to be so dogmatic about it, where it's not about that. It's about how it makes you feel. And that took me so long to get to that point where I was doing the movement for the joy of the movement and not because I was burning calories or burning off what I ate for dinner last night or whatever. It's for the joy of the movement. It's because it makes my soul feel good, and it's because it makes my body feel good. And I know it's good. I'm getting, I agree. It's being too restrictive with it. You set yourself up for a whole set of other problems.
Definitely. So I guess too, when it comes down to the certain design types, are there any go-to important advice that you would recommend for each type to kind of be in the best health that they could possibly be?
Just generally speaking?
Yeah, just generally speaking.
Yeah. For manifestors, for me, it's having them tune into kind of their whatever energetic phase they're in, and knowing how to support that energetic phase with the right food and exercise, and knowing that that's going to change, it's going to fluctuate. Generators and manifesting generators, I feel like I can put in the same category there for them. It's getting consistent movement each day, preferably each day, going till exhaustion at the end of the day. I think generators and manifesting generators should be at the end of the day feeling like I did it. That's how you want them to feel. That's the recipe for a great night's sleep and a recharge for the next day. So going until you feel like, oh my gosh, I did it all. Projectors, being protective of their energy. I like the example you were talking about, people who if I don't want to be in this conversation, I'm gonna pull myself out because I don't want to waste my energy. I feel like that's okay as a projector. Protect your energy, and protecting your energy with the food and the exercise too that you're incorporating into your life. And so, like I said before, eating a certain way for projector is supportive, but again, not falling into the conditioning of eating certain types of certain portion sizes, allowing the food to help you feel light and vibrant and not weighed down as a projector. And then with reflector, I feel like this is where big intuitive piece comes in, and allowing as a reflector, allowing yourself the flexibility to let what you do for movement and food change throughout the day, not even from day to day, but throughout the day. Being open to shifting and changing how you decide to move your body and what you're feeding your body throughout the day based on how your energy feels. I think there's just more of an intuitive piece there for reflectors to go by.
Yeah. So for maybe for example, if a reflector is booked in a box fit class and then, they show up and they're like, well, my energy's not really feeling this today, I might do yoga instead.
Yeah.
Being okay with that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Hope. I really appreciate you coming in today and sharing all of these juicy tips for all of our different design types and how we can use human design for more than just a spiritual modality, because this is also physical and mental and emotional. And we need to take into account our holistic health rather than just focusing on it as a spiritual modality. I love that you've put it into practice in your clinics, your franchises, and doing it as a more holistic approach. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thanks so much for having me and letting me share all of this with all your listeners.
If people are wanting to work with you specifically and they want to know a little bit more about this and find out more services that you offer with naturopathy and health, how can they find you?
Yes, so you can find me. So you go to hopeandwholesome.com and I talk through everything. I include my programs and give you all the details. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm at the Hope Pedraza. And then I have a free Facebook group. It's Live Wholesome and Healthy, and it's just all things functional and holistic living.
Thanks so much, Hope. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Elle.
Well, this is your Earth Side Spirit Guide signing off for the week. If you'd like to know more about how you can work with me, you can follow me on Instagram at Elle.Embers or visit my website, elleembers.com.